Good afternoon, everyone, and I would like to welcome you to our webinar today and to really look at the wonders that windows can really bring to your home or commercial property. And it gives me fantastic, great pleasure, especially since we are at the beginning of what will be a construction boom in Guyana, where we really need much better products in our marketplace. And to have a company like Florid Guyana and its new sister company, the Hardware Solutions Depot, to really take the lead on this. And with me today, I have two guests, and I will be introducing now my first guest, which is Mr. Andre Cummings, who is the CEO of Florid Guyana and the Hardware Solutions Depot. Welcome, Andre.
Good afternoon, Vishnu. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you.
Very
Welcome.
good. And Andre has really been, putting Guyana's products on the map with his fantastic flooring products. And Andre will be telling us today about his latest endeavors, how he came about this particular opportunity for the Guyanese market, and what does it mean to Guyana. So all over to you, Andre.
Thanks, Vishnu. And viewers, welcome again, and thanks for tuning in to our webinar this evening. I just want to talk first of how I come into contact with this fantastic company, Domus. A few years ago, when I built my first house, it was a very pretty house. It had lots of windows. So I said, this is a really beautiful house and it looks really good. And when we got in and we were living there, little do we know that in terms of heat exchange through windows and doors, that's responsible for 85% of the heat coming into your house as against the walls. And my electricity bill, GPL, you all know GPL bill is very, very expensive, and I was feeling it tremendously from my pockets. When I built my second house, I came into contact with Domus through Facebook, and I ordered the Solar E option from them. And I can tell you, that is a decision I am very, very happy with. My energy bill has been reduced by at least 45 to 50%. Because I will test and measure it, GPL. So that's how I came in contact first with the company. And this is about a year and a half ago. So, Florid is a company that is above the rest in terms of quality, warranties, reliability. So Terry, my partner for Domus, he was looking for a distributor in Guyana to display and to distribute his windows. And he was looking at a couple of companies, and he saw ourselves, and he looked at in terms of our philosophy and our clientele and the quality and even warranties we offer. And he thought, this really is a good match. And I can tell you, it really is a good match because these two companies really put technology and put research and product performance at the forefront, for sure. I can tell you, we had installed windows for a client on the East Coast, but at the time I wasn't with Domus, but this was 3 years ago. And it was a very huge house, over 100 windows. And 3 years after, two of the operators went bad and we changed it. So we stand to our warranty. So this is the kind of things that these two companies bring to the marketplace. And before I introduce you to Terry, I just want you to know the different configurations. And there's no other company here that's give you this kind of option, this kind of warranty, and this kind of Solar E options to reduce your bill, and the beauty and the maintenance free and so on. So I would like to introduce to you Terry. Terry is the CEO and Chief Engineer of Domus in Trinidad. It's a state-of-the-art factory in Trinidad, and Terry will go into details with the different things we promised to talk to you this afternoon. So over to you, Terry.
Thanks very much, Andre and Vishnu. Again, my name is Terry Ort. I am the CEO and founder of Domus, also the chief engineer, as he mentioned. And over the last 15 years since I started the company, we've gained a very extensive experience in the Caribbean market. But before starting the company, I was the CEO of Canada's largest integrated hotel company. Now, we had 24,000 hotel rooms all across the country, 2.5 million guests per annum, and we used to spend up to $10 million US per annum in terms of maintenance. So that's when I really got acquainted with uPVC. So I'll be going through in this webinar exactly what our experience is and the products. So who is Domus? Well, we're a Caribbean-based world-class corporation that's focused on specifically on the needs of the Caribbean and its challenging climate. And I think we are now setting a new standard for professionalism, for performance, and range of product in the industry. And I hope you'll agree by the end of the presentation. So first, a bit of an introduction. Oops. Pickup number one. Sorry about that. So first of all, I'll go over the format of the presentation. I'd like to first of all go over product range, the aesthetics, customization, and soundproofing of our products. I'd then like to deal with security, which is becoming an increasingly important function. And I'll talk a little bit about some standards about how you actually measure security performance. As Andre mentioned, I'll deal with energy efficiency. It is quite dramatic. Then I'll talk about maintenance and life cycle cost and our warranty. And then last of all, this kind of service and support that we can give. Really, Hardware Solutions Depot is really the face, and we are the people behind the scene delivering a lot of the stuff. So at the end of the presentation, we'll have some question and answer session. So please enter your questions at any time along the way, and we'll have an open discussion at the end. So first of all, aesthetics. It's very important for any product to have aesthetics. You can have something that looks pretty nasty, but maybe can perform. But honestly, one's mood can be lifted by aesthetics or dampened when it's non-existent. Building exteriors are generally very, very sparse. The windows and doors are actually just about all that dresses it up. So attractive windows and doors can beautify and show artistic taste. One thing is that studies have shown over time a human's mood can be either elevated or depressed by dark colors. So color is a matter of taste. 80 to 90% of all windows in Europe and North America are white. In other countries, for instance, Haiti, if you go there, you'll see that most windows are black or red. And so it gives a very different appearance. But if you end up in Barbados, for instance, you'll find that just about all of the high-end, very expensive houses have white, whether they're wood or whatever material they might be. So we've developed a wide range of products that say class, and that's important to start with. So these are just some examples of how windows and doors dress up a house, allow a lot of light in, and give that feeling of comfort and pride to look as you look through your windows and doors. Now we have a wide product range. Actually, we have the widest product range by far in the Caribbean. We have 4 different product lines, starting from the very affordable and economical performance line. Now, all of these products, even the least expensive, use the same high-quality materials. We then have Supreme, which provides sophisticated upmarket products. And then we have 2 additional lines. One is an economical security and hurricane-resistant product. And these are relatively inexpensive, but very, very effective. And then we have the high-impact security and hurricane-resistant products. And I'll show later how basically security and hurricane resistance happen to be pretty well the opposite sides of the same coin. So we also have a full product range in terms of the types. We have sash windows, sliders, awnings, casements, picture windows, swing doors, sliding patio doors, and a broad range of commercial units. In fact, in all of their configurations, we have over 1,000 different configurations that you can choose from. So here's some examples of product that we have here. Someone has mixed and matched with wood trim on the inside. Again, attractive casement windows, et cetera, et cetera. So all of these things say class, and yet they also function very, very well. The next thing is we provide a lot of customization. We have single pane, and we also have laminate glass structures. We have clear glass or tinted glass, blue-green tint, gray, bronze. The blue-green is particularly lovely around water. We also have specialty glass, frosted, reeded, and as Andre was mentioning, Solar E, which dramatically improves energy savings. We also have soundproofing. All of our laminate glass has an STC 35 rating. And so many people will put that in their bedrooms, if nothing else, just to cut out the street noise and so on. And then we can also laminate various types of glasses together. So we have over 150 different glazing options that you can choose from. As I mentioned, customization, renovation is certainly very easy because we have custom sizing for all products at no additional cost. So if your contractor happens to be out by ½ an inch, well, we can simply adjust the size, and when you get the door or window, it will fit perfectly. We also have custom configurations that we will do. We'll design, if we don't have the particular configuration in our system, then we'll do the design for it at no extra cost. And we also have shaped windows in terms of arches, round windows, triangular, pretty much everything you can think of. And here's some lovely homes with this particular one is a huge shaped window. This particular corner unit has no post in the corner, pardon me. Both doors open and allow you to walk out the corner of your house. Here we have a 270-degree window looking out in all directions over the sea. A shaped window, as you can see, there's a mountain behind that blends in with that particular shaped window. It would be a very different kitchen without that shaped window. I mentioned triangle, we do round, etc. So those are the aesthetics, and they're extremely important. And we kind of start with that, but we don't end there. We then move on to, for instance, security. Now, crime is a serious worry in Guyana, as it is in Trinidad, where I am, and throughout much of the Caribbean. As you probably know, Guyana gets the credit for the 4th highest per capita murder rate in South America and 4 times that in the US, which is pretty dramatic all to itself. There are also getting to be more armed home invasions. Often victims are beaten or killed, and criminals are getting more and more organized to carry out robberies as teams. So in terms of home invasions, they succeed when the exterior shell of the building is penetrated by the intruder. And window and door failures are the most vulnerable segment of the building shell itself. And you'll see that that's why they typically will attack that before anything else. Now, intruders can gain entrance by either smashing through a window, and you'll see that glass is without any sort of protection is no problem for a thief. Now, some people talk about tempered glass. Tempered glass is 4 times as strong as regular glass until it's hit, and then it explodes. And thieves actually love it because they can have broken through a window and into the house in seconds. The second thing is that a thief can kick in the entrance door. And here's an example of an attempted home invasion just 2 weeks ago here in Trinidad. This is the security camera. And you can see if he'd have got in on the first go, he'd have probably had the owner under trouble. Instead, the window, or the door stopped them, and they fled. So the last way is by removing shutters or traditional burglar proofing. Now, a lot of people put burglar proofing on the outside of the building. Well, this exposes it to the elements, a huge maintenance problem. Eventually, over time, it may rust to the point where it's no longer of any use. And if it's placed on the outside of a building, then they're very easily removed with a car jack. Or another one is to hook on a rope and just drive away and pull the whole thing off. They're also very unsightly. It feels like you're living in a cage. And if there's a fire, very often people cannot get out due to their burglar proofing. So it keeps them in rather than keeping the thieves out. Shutters are another thing that people can put on the house for protection. But very often, glazing or shutter material fails when the blows from the intruder and his tools hit it. And these guys know exactly where the vulnerable points are. If it's laminate glass, then the glazing can first be struck and then cracked. And once it's cracked, if it's got rubber gaskets, then it can simply be kicked out of the window. Or in some cases, the entire window or door is just not strong enough and fails because of the structural failure of the window or door or shutter itself, or insufficient fasteners, or the fasteners can be taken out, which can happen very quietly, or they're too short, or they're steel and they've rusted out and fallen apart completely. So you have to look at all of the details because trust me, the thieves do. Now, the basics of security-resistant windows, which are also the same features for hurricane resistance, are three things, three fundamentals. Firstly, the frames, the mullions, the sashes, and the other structural elements must be strong enough to withstand forces of wind and thieves. So how much force? What are the standards? Well, I'll talk a little bit about that in a minute. The second thing is the glazing itself must be capable of surviving multiple intruder blows with the worst that they can dish out. So that requires very, very strong laminate glass, and not all laminate glass is the same. The third thing is that the glazing needs to be glued into the frames to prevent it from popping out. So even if you have strong laminate glass and it's not glued in around the edges sufficiently, it will simply pop out, and again, the thief can gain entry. Installation is also extremely important. You must have fasteners that retain their strength over the life of ownership, 20 to 100 years. That means they have to be high-grade stainless steel. If they're regular steel, then salt air, even high humidity, and the concrete dust when they're being installed are sufficient to totally eat up the screws. And after a while, that you may not realize it, but the window or door is simply floating in the space, and one little kick and it'll pop out. It requires fasteners all around the perimeter of the window or door, so that it has enough resistance, and the pressure from the security intrusion attempt is going to be taken into the structure itself. The fasteners must be long enough so they don't pull out, and then you're also going to need high quality caulking because it helps hold the window in too, and you want to make sure that in 50 years from now, that caulking is just as strong as it was when it first went in. In many cases, cheap caulks will only last 2 or 3 years. Excuse me. So as I mentioned earlier, you can talk about units having security and hurricane resistance, but excuse me. But there are no agreed performance standards in the Caribbean. We've come up with some standards according to certain specifications. Now, when you're doing providing specifications, you want to have a balance. On one hand, if you set the performance standards too low, people and buildings are at risk. If you set them too high, they get so expensive and impossible to afford that they don't work either, and nobody can afford it. So after 15 years in this business, we now, I think, are the only window and door company in the business that has set these standards for security. And really, we talk about two different impact specs. One is the economical security and hurricane impact specification. So we're talking about impact is the ability to withstand the blows. Now we have a test for this economical window type, and that is 3 blows of a 2x4 missile fired from a cannon at 40 feet per second. This is a standard American Society test for the testing of materials. So it's a given standard that exists. So this lower standard that we have, Missile C, is still very economical and affordable by any Caribbean citizen who owns a home. It does provide sufficient impact resistance to stop thieves and the vast amount of intense hurricanes as well, by the way. So I'm going to show you the economical hurricane impact test with these 3 missiles, and then followed by a demonstration of the intrusion resistance. 3 missile strikes, one in the center of the window, one in this is the operating sash. And keep in mind, this is our economical hurricane. It's a very inexpensive unit, but it works very, very well. You'll see at the end of the day that the glass is all cracked up, but if you have a thief, he'll be on the outside rather than the other way around. And this is a demonstration of its resistance to attempted impact. So here we have a thief with a heavy crowbar, and he assumes that he's going to break through very easily. But in fact, while the glass again is cracked up, glass can always be replaced, people cannot. So that was our economical. We also have a high impact security product as well. And this one is considerably stronger. It's also a lot more expensive. The test in this case, again, is an ASTM E1996 test, Missile D, which is an 8-foot-long 2x4 shot from a cannon at 50 feet per second. And it's really available for those who want to have the ultimate peace in mind and can afford it. So again, we'll show the high-impact hurricane test, followed by a demonstration of the resistance to intrusion. So here we have an 8-foot-long 2x4, 50 feet per second. You'll notice this is a big piece of glass. You might think a big piece of glass is more vulnerable. Actually, with this heavy-duty laminate, it actually will absorb more energy. The bigger the glass, the more resistance it has to intrusion. And now you'll see that demonstrated.
There is a thief who is highly motivated to commit. Not sure if he's very strong, but we'll see. So I think you need a bigger hammer. Try again. You're not getting in very well. Okay, well I think that's enough. You kind of get the idea.
Now you'll see multiple blows with a 10-pound sledgehammer. Most burglar proofing, most other security will not stand up to it. Yet this particular product will accept multiple blows. Now, a lot of our competitors sell something called impact glass, which is laminate glass. And we had, but not all impact glass is equal, as you'll see from a customer of ours who brought these videos to us.
Gone right through. Yeah, that makes sense. Last thing again. You can break right through. But it's going to break. It's gone straight through like it's gone through already. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Right here, your box.
So as you see, we have gone to a great deal of effort, and you won't find many of the products around that will stand up to that kind of abuse. So that's the impact side of it. What about the structural strength? You saw that big guy running into the door. So how do you quantify security resistance when it comes to someone trying to kick in the door? Again, there's no agreed structural strength specifications in the Caribbean, but after our experience, we have now developed one, and we are now publishing and testing all of our specs to this kind of level, and that's 100 pounds per square foot. So to put that in perspective, a 3-foot wide by 7-foot high door would be 21 square feet or over a ton of resistance. So it's certainly sufficiently strong to repel a 300-pound thief running into the door and trying to smash through. And also, given that the door flexes and the impact glass will absorb energy, it will also take multiple blows and abuse. By the way, it's also sufficient to stand up to a 200-mile-an-hour hurricane, which is 10 miles per hour higher than the strongest hurricane ever recorded in the last 120 years in the Caribbean. So again, that's that's going to. And by the way, the floor that you're sitting on or walking on now is required to be 50 pounds per square foot. So this is actually twice as strong as the floor you're walking on. So how do we test that? Well, we have our own test lab. In fact, we have the only test lab in the Eastern Caribbean. We put the subject against the test wall, which is made of high-grade steel and heavy Lexan glass. We then strap it into a wooden buck against the wall. We then use suction in order to create a pressure differential. Now keep in mind that atmospheric pressure all around us from gravity, is about 2,100 pounds per square foot. So we don't need a full vacuum in order to get 100 pounds per square foot. Just a relatively small amount of pressure can put huge pressure on the door itself. So we actually suck the air out of one side of the door, and that loads up the door. Now here's our economical hurricane. We did some testing on it. This particular one, you can see how it's eventually come out of the sashes come out of its out of the frame, and it's cracked the window. That happened at 263 miles an hour. It made it up to 258 with no failure. That's 165 pounds per square foot. That's 3.3 times as high as the floor or as strong as the floor that you're sitting on. So we know that these will stand up to impact and also abuse from anyone trying to break in. Now, there's other security considerations that should be taken into account as well. First of all, the locks should not be easily picked or thwarted, and many of them can be. Also, the hinge pins on the swing doors should not be able to be tapped out. You may not realize that, but very often a screwdriver and a hammer, you can very quietly tap up the hinge pins out, and then you can actually pull the right door up. The door will open from the wrong side. And also the locking mechanism must be robust enough to resist would-be thieves again. So here's a little video that shows the high-grade stainless steel. This is German stainless steel with a triple lock on the swing doors, lock in the center, top and bottom, and it gets a grade 10 intrusion rating, which is the highest that is available in the industry. You can also see that the hinge pins, there's a little screw that goes into the center of it, so you can't knock the pin out until you open the door and then release the screw. And the other thing is we have a door stop all around the outside of the door, so that when someone smacks against the door, it's going to spread the load into the structure and make sure it doesn't fail. That's for swing doors, but sliding patio doors are very vulnerable. They are one of the easiest ways of generally getting in. Obviously, regular float glass or tempered glass, which is a lot of them, can easily be broken. A lot of the locks are very weak and can be easily pried open. A lot of the sashes can actually be lifted out of the frame. Very often you'll have a very thin base on a sill on the underneath these doors, and actually if you're washing your patio on the outside, you might also be washing your living room because it's wide open underneath, and you can very often just lift the sashes up and out and gain entry that way. So if any of these vulnerabilities exist, then high security is impossible. So again, the glass on the door should not be regular float glass or tempered glass. Again, we want a very strong lock. In this case, we have a double jaw lock to it, made of high-grade stainless steel, and again meets the highest level of security, the level 10. And the other thing too is that we have an upstand on both the top and the bottom, which prevent that sash from being lifted up. You can see it's in the track, and so you can't lift it or get it out. But if you do want, anybody who does have at least proper glass, if you want to have some extra security, a very inexpensive way is simply to put a block of wood in the door, paint it white, and it looks very nice. So these are some other security considerations, and that pretty well covers the waterfront, except for one thing, and that is your burglar proofing. Burglar proofing should be put inside the windows and doors behind laminate glass. So that gives you a double level of protection. So the thief is going to have to make a lot of noise and try to smash their way through the outer laminate glass section before they even get to the burglar proofing. And also it can't be pried out because it's on the inside. If you have long screws all around the perimeter, you drill out the head, they can't remove the screws. And so it makes a very, very effective security barrier. Now, this is the type of burglar proofing. It went into the last 15 police stations in Trinidad. It's factory painted white aluminum. It still looks attractive when it's on the inside of the window. It looks like Frenching. And so again, trying to have both aesthetically pleasing stuff and also have the performance as well. So here's an example of that. Now, Andre made reference to energy efficiency. And electrical energy consumed in the Caribbean comes largely from AC. We don't have to heat our homes very much. Now, heat is transmitted through the walls by conduction. And so insulation in the walls is a very effective way of reducing heat gain and reducing your energy cost. But glazed window and doors are disproportionately transfer heat, mostly by way of solar heat gain. That is, the sun's rays, solar rays, come in through the glass. Now, only 15% comes in by convection. And a lot of people talk to me saying, oh, well, I've been told that insulated glass is very, very good for air conditioning. Well, it's good at keeping the heat in cold homes, which is where it's very often used, Europe, North America, etc. But we don't want to keep the heat in, we want to keep the heat out. So solar E glazing cuts the solar heat gain, which again is 85% comes in that method, cuts it in half, almost in half, and a very modest cost. The payback is typically 3 to a maximum about 6 or 8 months, something like that. So, and depending on the amount of glazing and the insulation in your walls, this can actually reduce the cost of your air conditioning by 30%. You put blinds on and do a couple of other things, you can cut it in half. So this is a very, very effective, inexpensive, and not broadly available feature. And the other thing too is that when you have solar E, it also prevents hotspots in the house. Very often if you walk by a window without solar E, you'll find that it's very hot near the outside of the house and very cool on the inside. Whereas with solar E, you tend not to get these hotspots. It's a much more even temperature. Even if you don't have air conditioning, it will also make a house very much more comfortable by keeping the heat on the outside, the solar E. Now, I talked earlier about the maintenance costs, and really that's what led me to look at PVC. If you do look at the life cycle cost, you'll notice that the materials do matter very much. Wood, for instance, requires constant painting, so that's a cost. It rots, it has poor security performance. Steel is very tacky and aesthetically displeasing, but on top of that, it also rusts quickly. requires constant maintenance, and again has very poor thermal performance. The steel actually conducts the heat into the house very, very easily. Aluminum, now aluminum is very popular around the Caribbean because it's easy to make. You get an aluminum extrusion, you have a saw and a screwdriver, and set it up in your garage and you can make an aluminum window. But the exposed surfaces oxidize, particularly in high salt content air, and you don't have to be right on the sea to have that happen. And like steel, they have very poor thermal performance. Very often they have rubber gaskets, and the gaskets crack, they leak, they need replacing, and they provide no security. So if you look at the life cycle cost over, say, a 20-year period, you'll find that the maintenance cost, replacement, heat gain, etc., very often create costs that net out to more than 5 times the original cost. So you either pay now or you pay later. And so here's some examples of wood. This is a 2-year-old window made from wood on the north coast of Trinidad. This is in the front of a hotel on the east coast of Tobago. Again, very attractive pergola. Steel, this again is a hotel property. After about this is after 7 years. And so very unattractive. See a lot of steel windows around. What happens is the water eventually gets through the coating, and when it does, then the steel spalls, it expands up to 8 times its normal volume. And as it's expanding, it's putting pressure on the glass. You'll see that glass crack, and very soon the glass will actually just pop out, and not very aesthetically pleasing. Again, this is a coastal area, but this is 2.5 years after they made this particular unit. Here's aluminum, University of West Indies in Trinidad. 9 months in, 80 or 90% of the sashes were all leaking due to the gaskets being distorted and starting to crack. And talk about oxidation. Here again, we've got and this isn't really on a coastal setting. This just happens to be fairly high humidity. So this shows again something very unattractive. So in terms of maintenance, there's some reasons why uPVC has basically dominated the Western market. In Europe, more than 2/3 of all windows and doors sold are uPVC. The other 1/3 are wood, steel, fiberglass, aluminum, but taken all together, they only represent 1/3 of the market. The PVC's been around in Europe for 50 years, and people have learned what makes sense. In North America, 60 to 90% of all windows and doors sold are uPVC. In Barbados, basically all units are PVC. There's hardly anything else in that market. But throughout the Caribbean, we find that PVC is not very prevalent. It's just now starting to be popular, and ourselves and Hardware Solutions Depot are going to be educating the marketplace. Hence, this is one of the reasons for this particular webinar. The PVC products are very well suited to the Caribbean. They withstand high humidity, intense sun. They last a lifetime. There's no maintenance. It really makes a lot of sense. And then if you put solar glazing in, you can reduce the heat gain dramatically as well, as I've already mentioned. The other thing too, it improves the environment. It reduces the hot spots near windows and doors. So the other advantages of PVC is they have nice clean lines. They look classy forever without maintenance. They're totally inert. There's no corrosion, even in high salt concentration locations. They basically have almost no maintenance. There is some. You've got to keep them, obviously, wash them down every once in a while and keep them clean. And but generally speaking, there's so little maintenance that it's almost non-existent. Welded corners don't leak or deteriorate. They can be reinforced. They stand up to blows without splitting, and they have excellent thermal performance. In fact, there's air spaces inside, and they don't conduct heat at all. Now, our warranty, we believe, is the strongest in the industry. All of our uPVC components are guaranteed for 20 years against any kind of deterioration. And if after 20 years your windows look exactly the same as they did day one, that's a pretty good starting point. We also guarantee all of our hardware for 5 years and also our laminate glass for 5 years as well. So as you can see, a lot of people think windows and doors are very simple, straightforward, but I think as you can see now, there are a lot of different options and choices to be made. And so in many cases, for those who have not lived with this product for the last 20 or 30 years, it certainly helps to have proper advice, and Hardware Solutions Depot can do that. Look at the customer's needs, the budget, and help find the best solution and provide the highest return, maximum value for money from the customer. And we're going to be presenting through Hardware Solutions Depot a combination of style and aesthetics, security, energy efficiency, soundproofing, and low maintenance. Also, installation, I mentioned before, is very important. Again, Hardware Solutions Depot will do the installation and do it properly the first time. So that's extremely important. A lot of contractors mess up a lot of products. In addition, we've had the last 15 years of experience, and so we have a technical team, whether it's designing custom configurations or providing advice and support for more complicated questions. We're around to provide the backup. We have an online portal, so people can actually call into our call center and speak to someone together with the HSD people. So I guess that pretty much does it. Somebody want to, Andre or Vishnu, take over the Q&A section?
I thank you very much, Terry. Fantastic presentation. I know that we have quite a few questions lined up here, so I'll get them going, and I think I can remove the screen. To anyone else, I can see quite a number of people are watching us live at the moment. So if you have any questions, please feel free to put them into the comments section, and so that we can have our experts here answer them. Now, the first question that I have listed here is, how does the process work in Guyana? If someone were to be interested, what is the first step?
Andre?
Okay, right. So our showroom is located on North Road. You can come down there and have a first-hand experience of the windows, and there we discuss with you the different options and the best solutions. That's the very first step, and we start the process there.
I have a follow-up question here. Would Hardware Solutions Depot do the measurements, or does the client have to do that themselves?
Right. Many times when a house is being built, there's what we call the window schedule, where the contractor or the architect will supply that. But we will come and do measurements as an additional service, yes.
All right, the follow-up on that one is, how long does it take to receive a quotation?
Right. A quotation generally between 24 hours to 48 hours max.
All right, and is there a price, is there a cost for the quotation? The measurement and quotation?
No.
Here we have another one. What does the U in uPVC stand for, Terry?
Okay, well, that's a good one. People very often refer to the windows as plastic. In fact, plastic is a combination of PVC plus a lot of resins. The U stands for unplasticized. So it's almost 100% PVC, and it's a totally different product than plastic. So resins very often will break down under the sun. With proper stabilizers, the PVC can last 100 years without any deterioration. So it's unplasticized PVC, not plastic.
Very good. There's a question that came in from social media as well. The benefits of solar e-windows. So I know that you mentioned reduction in the heat. Is there any other benefit to the solar e-windows?
Well, if it's laminated, and that's in many cases we have laminate glass, I should have mentioned that the laminate itself blocks 95% of ultraviolet light. And so once you put any laminate glass, whether it's soldery or otherwise, then you will have no deterioration of your of the fabrics on your furniture, or art on the wall, or painting. So it does have that additional feature.
Very good. And there's another one coming in from social media. What type of windows would you recommend for an oceanfront property?
Well, generally speaking, the simpler the better. So if you have a slider window, there's no hardware in there. There's nothing really to deteriorate. There's two bronze rollers on the bottom. And so they're easier to maintain than casement or awning windows. Casements look like a door, or open. They're a window that opens like a door, and an awning opens upward. For those types of windows, they have to have hinges on them. And we do have the highest grade stainless steel available on those particular units, but they will require some maintenance to make sure that they're properly lubricated, because the salt can actually sit on the hinges and the hardware, and eventually kind of clog it up. So it does take a little more effort. The other one that's very good is a sash window, the ones that go up and down. They too are very simple. There's really nothing exposed to the elements, and they will again require the least amount of effort and last the longest without any trouble.
Next question we have here is, once a quotation is approved, what is the time between that approval and installation?
Andre?
Right. So once it's approved, the time frame is between 4 to 6 weeks, of course, depending on the size of the order.
4 to 6 weeks?
Yeah, 4 to 6 weeks. In some cases, it can come under. What I want to also mention that it is duty free, because coming from Trinidad, CARICOM, so duty free.
Very good. And then we have the big one here, is how does this compare in terms of pricing to aluminum windows, which are more popular in Guyana?
Generally speaking, I'll take that one. Generally, uPVC is a little more expensive, and also use high quality materials and so on. They do add some additional cost. If your only objective as a manufacturer is to make the cheapest, you can put in all sorts of materials that are going to fall apart in the Caribbean. As I said, hopefully people will look at the life cycle cost. In other words, the life of ownership of that unit. And typically, if you buy a uPVC product or if you buy an aluminum product, you'll probably over the life pay anywhere from 3 to 5 times the cost of the PVC.
Very good. Right, well, we're getting some very nice comments as well that, it sounds very appealing. Very good. Now, I know that we are really on track to be able to end at 7 o'clock. I've exhausted the questions that we had listed here. And what I would like to do is give both of you an opportunity to make some closing remarks so that persons can really get a bit of a synopsis in case someone has joined us late. And I would like to get started with Terry. A little bit of a synopsis. Maybe I can also ask you, what do you believe will happen in Guyana? What you're in an economy that has benefited from oil and gas for quite a while. In Guyana, it's very new to us. What do you think will happen in our market? And how does, especially from a building perspective, building materials perspective, should we look at this?
Well, I guess if I look at the last 20 years in the Caribbean, Guyana has kind of struggled a bit economically. And so when there's very little funds flowing around in an economy, you have to be very, very careful with costs, and you very often have to make shorter term choices. However, I've seen estimates that the economy is going to grow 26% this year, and there will be certainly some trickle down. And I think the economy will do very, very well, which is exciting for me to see. as I said, because Guyana has kind of struggled for a long time. So it's nice to see it being lifted up so quickly. As far as the as windows and doors, as I said, it seems like it rolls off the tongue. Most people think it's a very simple thing. I think, as Andre has found, there's a lot more to it if you do it well than meets the eye. And as I said during the presentation, you certainly want to start with aesthetics and you want to finish with performance. And performance comes in a variety of different ways: security, energy efficiency, and longevity, low maintenance costs, and so on. So it's a multi-dimensional matrix, if you will, of features that can deliver the best value over time, which is why uPVC dominates in the developed world. I mean, there's almost nothing around anymore because the market has just learned that that's the way to go. And I'm sure that's exactly what will happen in Guyana as well.
Very good. Thank you very much for that, Terry. And Andre, your thoughts on not just the presentation, on what the Hardware Solutions Depot will really mean to Guyana?
Yes. What I'd like to say, what Hardware Solutions is bringing to Guyana is entailed in the name itself, Hardware Solutions. Many times people talk about the price, which means that they're really cost conscious. And Terry mentioned earlier, like for example, aluminum windows. If you look at it, the life cycle of the product, you end up paying 5 times more than if you pay a little more upfront for something that is uPVC windows. So as Guyana continue to benefit from the oil and gas and the trickle-down effect with disposable income, I think people are begin to become more sophisticated and they're looking for a higher quality of products. And Terry, I like Terry's statement by saying, first you start with aesthetics and you finish with performance. And that is exactly what Domus windows and doors bring to the market. It's aesthetic, it's pleasing, it's performance, and it's even saving you on money in terms of energy wise. So all these features really speaks about the benefits of to the homeowner and to the developer in their projects.
Maybe I could just add a little bit too. When I was in Canada running this large hotel company, the difference between profitability or not was the amount of money we had to spend on maintenance. And so we started a process where every renovation that we would do, we would take the capital cost, in other words, the upfront cost of buying them and installing them. We would then look at annual maintenance, cleaning, etc. We would look at any major refurbishments, any replacement over a 20-year period. And then we would bring that all back to present value. And we found very often we could pay 5 times as much. Actually, borrow, if we had, let's say we had $100 that we were willing to spend, we could go out, borrow the extra $400 from the bank, pay off the loan with including interest, and still be ahead of the game, having paid 5 times as much for the right product. So it's not really a discipline that many people think of, I guess, in the Caribbean. But as time goes on, I think people will become much more knowledgeable about just what that product is going to cost them over their lifetime.
Very good. But that's not to say that this option is 5 times more than a regular option, right?
No, not at all. I'm just saying it might be on average, I don't know, 15% more. But I'm just saying you could pay 5 times as much and still be ahead of the game. But you don't have to. It's just that if you only look at the upfront costs and don't look at what the costs are down the road, you're fooling yourself.
Very good. So long-term thinking versus short-term decision making. And I must thank both of you, Terry and Andre, for taking an hour out of your day to educate the public on this really fantastic option. I know that we ourselves are in the process of constructing a property, and we're also making sure that we want to have an option that will last us a very long time, especially since we're just about 200 meters from the seawall as well. A beautiful view, but we don't want that view to be damaging our windows or the option that we will go with. So I know that many people on social media are watching. People are saying that it's very interesting. I'm trusting that people would have gotten really, really good feedback. And if you have any questions, you can see the numbers that are scrolling on the screen there right now. And they're located at Lot 3 North Road, Georgetown. Andre, if you can just in parting there, can let us know, give us some directions to the showroom.
Right. The showroom is located between Camp and Wellington Street on North Road. It's the last building on the right before you go over Wellington Street.
Right, I think it's
And
obliquely opposite Gizmos, right?
Gizmos and Gadgets. Right. And you can also visit the website, Domus Windows and Doors, and you'll get all the possible information you need and all the support from us.
Very good. So, gentlemen, thank you very much. I look forward to talking to you again in the future when you share even more information about these fantastic products. Good evening and stay safe.
Great. Thanks, Vishnu.
Thank you.